Alright, so today in this video, I'm gonna bang out all of the key info you need to know for education, for sociology, for AQA, yeah? I'm gonna probably do it within 30 to 40 minutes. I don't know how long this video is gonna be, but yeah, I'm gonna do it proper quick, so take a pause when you need to. Alright, so first things first, we got a functionalist view on education. Right, so to put it simply, these guys really like education. Like they see it as a key part of society. Yeah, oh shit, I actually did write it. They see education as a key part of socialization. So Durkheim actually talks about social solidarity. This basically means that society's norms and values are taught to pupils through the education system. And then Parsons talks about something kind of similar, secondary socialization, which, as I wrote, an individual learns the basic values, norms, and behaviors that are expected of them outside the main agency of the family. Yeah. And finally, we got Davis and Moore talking about role allocation, which, as I wrote, the education system sifts and sorts students into their future roles in society, basically teaching them skills that they'll need later on in life to help them in society. Typically, it refers to like skills they'll need for their work life later on. Alright, so then we got the Marxist view on education. And they're kind of like, you could say it's kind of like the opposite to functionalist view on education, because they believe that education, all it does is like it reinforces capitalism. About an ideological state apparatus, right? And what that does is that it reproduces class inequalities. It reproduces class inequalities because it creates a false consciousness which doesn't let the working class, basically the proletariat, which is what it's called, see how unjust their situation really is. Basically, like, they don't actually realize how unfair they're being treated. Yeah. And this is done through convincing these working class students that they're not bright enough, when in reality, the education system is stacked against them. Alright, then we have the correspondence principle talked about by Bowles and Gintis. They talk about how school mirrors the workplace to prepare students for their work life later on. And this is done, well, I didn't write this down, but this is done through the hidden curriculum. Examples of this, for example, are like hierarchies. Like in school, you have to follow the teacher and listen to them. Same way at work, you gotta listen to your boss. Rewards and punishments. You can get punished at work too if you do the wrong thing. Same thing with school as well. Alright, then we have Pierre Bourdieu talking about culture capital. Yeah. So he says that the education system disadvantages the working class because it prioritizes the middle class's culture and habitus, which align with the system's norms. Yeah, so basically it would put the middle class at an advantage because they're already familiar with some of the things in the education system. An example of that I could think about is like restricted and elaborative speech code, how middle class are already taught elaborative speech code, which is similar to what's spoken in school, whereas working class aren't familiar with that, which would put them at a disadvantage. Then you got the new right perspective, which I'll be real, I don't think it's as content heavy as functionalist and Marxist view, but nonetheless they still have some things to talk about. So basically, they just believe that schools should be run like businesses, like they like marketization policies and all of that, right? So Chubbs and Mo, yeah, that's their names. They introduce market forces. So they think that schools should compete like businesses for better standards. Basically, like it would make schools, a bit of competition would like benefit the schools and make them perform better. That's basically what they're saying. And they emphasize parental choice and school accountability and believe education should uphold national identity and shared values. And to be honest, I think that's all you need to know for new right. I think you'll be good with that info. Alright, so now we're done with all the perspectives, we're on to labeling theory. and I got a nice table for this. So at the top, you can see it just gives a definition. When a teacher labels a student, that label will become part of the student's identity and live up to it to create a self-fulfilling prophecy. Label is like, typically negative. Like, for example, just saying like, oh, this kid's slow or something. Like anything to mess with the guy's head that will just affect him and make him think that, oh, maybe I am actually slow, you know? But thing is that like people have gathered this from research, but in my second one, it says that research can be biased because interviews may not be valid if students aren't actually aware they have been labeled. Because that's true, because it's not like all the time that teachers publicly tell the students like what they think of them. Like they just keep it to themselves sometimes. And then I got a couple studies down, yeah. To be honest, I'm not gonna lie, there's not really a point in me reading it because I'm just gonna read exactly word for word what it says. But I'll keep it on the screen for a bit so you guys can just, yeah, read it. Alright, and by the way, guys, if I was too quick with that one, my bad, just screenshot it and look back on it. But then you got class differences in achievement. Alright, we're looking at external factors first. So you got material deprivation, basically a lack of resources that a working class might have, and this could put them at a disadvantage. An example is, like they might not get like proper nutritious foods at home, which could just make them feel more ill, like generally because you're not eating the right foods, makes you miss more days, and makes it harder for you to keep up with the guys with the good diets who are going in all day. Then you got cultural deprivation. This links to the cultural capital, yeah, which I said before. Just lack of access to cultural resources. Oh yeah, I wrote language codes. Middle class use elaborative code. Working class use restrictive code, and obviously elaborative code is the one used in schools. So if you don't know that, another disadvantage. And then Douglas talks about parents, which is a big factor because students learn a lot of stuff from their parents and they pick up on it. So they say working class parents value education less and give less support. And also, Sugarman talks about how working class have a fatalistic attitude, basically meaning that they think that their fate is already sealed. And yeah, they look at immediate gratification, which is basically they want like rewards now. They don't want to put in the work and get rewards later. And Bourdieu Culture Capital, I don't know why I added this shit again. I already had it. But yeah, it's just advantage to middle class because they're more familiar with, the education system and the culture of the education system because they were taught it from home. Then you got internal factors for class differences in achievement, obviously. Um Labeling, right? Because teachers can label the working class negatively, and as we said before, it can cause a self-fulfilling prophecy. And Becker and Riss talk about this. Then there's setting and streaming, which is basically like grouping pupils based on their ability, and obviously because working class are at disadvantages due to the external factors talked about before, they would be more likely to be in lower sets, which would cause them to have a lower self-esteem, causing them to have like underachieving. Yeah. Then pupil subcultures, right? Which is basically a group of pupils who share ideas and behavior patterns which are different from mainstream culture. And typically working class students can also form a anti-school subculture, which is, obviously is just a negative type of school subculture which goes against like the school values, and it would just cause them to fail in school basically. And then marketization, which is obviously just a competitive market between schools. Schools, this is a cream skim middle class pupils. Working class are more likely to be excluded or sidelined. Basically, this means, right, the good schools, they're obviously going to want the better students. And obviously, because of all the factors, middle class are just going to be performing better. So the good schools are going to take in the middle class students, whereas the bad ones are low-key just going to take in the working class ones, which just makes the working class perform even worse. It's just a cycle. All right, then we have gender and internal factors. Alright, I got a few like statistics and information at the side you can read if you need to. But the first one is equal opportunities. So policies were introduced to help girls achieve their potential. And also WISE also helped with this, which is basically stands for Women into Science and Engineering. As before these were more male dominated subjects, but things have changed now. The impact that that's caused is now girls now outperform boys at all stages, like even for these subjects. Next one, role models. They say that there's growing employment for women. That would like show girls that they can really have a future in whatever job they want because they see other girls doing it now. So it will just make them have more ambition. Yeah. Girls mature earlier, right, with GCSE and coursework, so they're more suited than boys to complete coursework because they're more organized, and that would just make the girls. The impact would be that they would just do better. I mean, that is, true. If girls mature earlier and boys don't, then they'll just have a better head on their education compared to guys. Um, Teacher attention. Alright, teachers give more attention to boys as they are disruptive, but girls are seen as cooperative. Yeah, so that's a factor that you could talk about because yeah, because if teachers have a positive like outlook on the girls, thinking like, oh yeah, they're cooperative, they'll do well. It'll cause the girls to also think that yeah, we're actually good students. So it'll cause them to have a positive self-fulfilling prophecy. Yeah, instead of the negative ones that can come from labeling sometimes. Yeah. Um, Challenging stereotypes. Books previously portrayed women as housewives, so removing this remove the barrier. Yeah, I guess if in schools they're not showing those old traditional books that would reinforce those type of views on women, then it would cause like girls to not even think that way. Yeah. So yeah, the impact on that is that they'll just have more creativity and stuff because they'll read more modern books that show girls in a different way, I guess. Yeah. But league tables, yeah. So alright, yeah, this is a good one as well. So you could talk about how schools alright, so because of all these factors, girls are obviously gonna be outperforming and doing better than guys, according to this, right? So schools would wanna obviously accept the better students. And if better students are mainly girls, then mainly girls are gonna get in the better schools. So yeah. And then, yeah, that's about it. There's an evaluation. Skelton and al. Found the feminization of teaching does not negatively impact male achievement with much significance, and primary socialization of male behavior is reinforced by secondary socialization. But yeah, that's about it. All right, so now it's gender and external factors. So the first one, as you can see from the table, feminism. Yeah, feminist campaigns have just helped fight against patriarchy. Yeah, and the impact on that, I guess, is girls will be able to see that women now have a say in society more than they had before, and they can choose whatever career they want to really. Evaluation for that is that it's kind of hard to measure like the impact that feminism has created. Next one, changes in the family. Women are more likely to take on the role of breadwinner due to changes in the family. Like there's a lot more divorce nowadays, and a lot of the time there's lone parent families, like women raising families by themselves. So the impact on this is that careers are now more normal for women. So yeah, a girl would probably be more likely to work now than before, which means they would probably focus more on education than before as well, right? All right, and then you have changes in women's employment. So basically now there is an equal number of men and women in full-time employment when before it used to be more men, and now more women are seek for managerial jobs. I think that's how you pronounce it than before. Yeah. So the impact on this, yeah, is that girls are more motivated to work hard as there is more to their future than being a housewife. Or before, their future was kind of more focused around that. Uh, evaluation feminists argue this is a great step to greater equality, but downside is that it could lead to less opportunities for men, so they now may see themselves as having no future. Yeah, it could happen. Changing girls' ambitions is the next one. Sharpe talks about ambitions of girls in 1970 were more focused on marriage and children. Then from 1990, women focused on their career first and then family later on. Impact on this is that now more girls have more options than just having a family, so they have more motivation. Evaluation on this larger workforce, yeah, and that's about it again for this one. Then you have impact of globalization on education, right? So the factor is globalization has caused increased competition in education. This is because now UK education has policies that make it compete with other countries, like international league tables. This would lead to like the UK government putting more pressure on the education system to raise standards and testing so they can get a good rank in the league tables. So yeah, it just leads to raising standards and testing in school. Alright, then you have migration and multiculturalism. So due to that, right, schools are much more diverse than they used to be, which has led to the curriculum also to become a bit more like it's adapted a bit more to reflect multicultural values. Although some critics still argue that this is still not the case, right? Then you have the UK government borrowing education policies from other countries that have a more successful education system. For example, the Asian education model usually has longer school days and stricter discipline, right? Also, changes in skills and knowledge. Then you have changes in skills and knowledge because the global market demands new types of workers. For example, more focus on IT skills, flexibility, and more of a shift towards knowledge-based economies, right? An evaluation of globalization, right? Positives would be there is more of a greater awareness of different cultures, yeah. Then you have governments from different countries sharing the best educational practices, like which ones are the most effective, right? In negatives, right, increased pressure on students, which comes from the increased competition from globalization. Then another negative is that it creates a bigger inequality between richer and poorer classes. Alright, then next slide is about subject choice and why specific genders pick specific subjects. Alright, so one explanation for a trend which is external is gender role socialization. So Norman talks about this and he says from like early ages, right, girls are socialized more gently and are more protected, while boys are encouraged to run around and get dirty. Right, this is done from a young age. So like this already causes a gender preference to certain subjects without them even knowing. So the reason why girls and boys pick specific subjects is because they've been socialized like that since they were young. So like girls may tend to go for less practical stuff because they've been socialized in a more quiet and gentle environment, or guys might go for something more practical. Yeah. An internal factor is gender identities within school, right? Skelton et al. Talks about this and says pupils may choose subjects based on their own gender identity that they have within school, right? Kelly talks about how some subjects are just like they have a stereotype for specific genders, right? So, like for example, he mentions that science can be seen as a male subject, right? Feminists say that stereotypical subjects reproduce patriarchy. Yeah. There's also a peer pressure to conform to gender roles, and a statistic I added in there. There's only 1% of construction apprentices that are female. Yeah. All right, so then there is ethnic differences in achievement. So external factors is cultural deprivation in a lot of ethnic families, which I think I mentioned before. Sewell actually talks about this specifically in black families, and he says that there's a lack of tough love in black lone parent families, which leads to young black kids going on to street culture. Then Murray, who's a new right, also talks about how there can be black underachievement due to lone mothers. So it all kind of links back to like black lone families. Then there's material deprivation, right? So Bucky already said how what you call it, material deprivation can lead to issues in education and lead to students being behind. So Pakistani and Bangladeshi students are more likely to live in poverty, right? So that would obviously affect them. There's racism in wider society, which would affect ethnic minorities' self-esteem and make them feel like they might not have a lot of opportunity. Internal factors, labeling, obviously mentioned before how this is an issue in education, and teachers are quicker to discipline black pupils, meaning like they'll already have a negative self-fulfilling prophecy. Streaming, ethnic minorities are often placed in lower sets, which could cause them to have a lower self-esteem and not work as hard. Curriculum ignores black and Asian culture, which would obviously, if that was included, it might make them pay more attention to the education and the curriculum, right? Then you have institutional racism, right? Gillborn talks about this, and ethnic minorities may just have less access to opportunities. All right, finally, we have educational policies, and I'm just gonna leave that on the screen for you guys. You can screenshot that, take notes, whatever. Just because there's not really much I can add on to that. All right, that is about the end for sociology education AQA. If you guys know all of this, then you should be good for the exams, right? So good luck and thank you for watching.